The morning sun filtered through the cracked windows of the small mud brick house in the remote village of Karen, casting a soft glow at 10 a.m. PKT on Thursday, June 19, 2025. 12-year-old Amir sat cross-legged on the floor, his unseeing eyes fixed on the world only he could hear. Born blind, Amir had learned to navigate his surroundings through sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant bleat of goats, the whispers of the wind. His mother, Zainab, hummed a lullaby as she kneaded dough, her voice a comforting anchor in his silent darkness. But today, an uneasy hum lingered in the air, one Amir couldn't quite place. Karen was a quiet village nestled in the arid plains of Baluchistan, its people bound by tradition and hardship. Amir's father had died years ago in a mining accident, leaving Zainab to raise him alone. Despite his blindness, Amir was the village's unofficial storyteller, weaving tales of bravery from the sounds he gathered. Yet, beneath the surface, a shadow loomed. For weeks, strange vehicles had rumbled through at night, their engines growling like beasts. The elders spoke in hushed tones of land being seized, but no one dared act. That morning, the hum sharpened into a roar. Amir tilted his head, his sensitive ears picking up the crunch of tires on gravel and the sharp bark of orders. He gripped his walking stick, its worn wood a familiar friend. "Ami, someone's coming," he said, his voice steady but tinged with concern. Zainab wiped her hands on her shawl, peering out the window. 3 black SUVs rolled into the village square, their windows tinted and engines idling ominously. Men in dark uniforms stepped out, their boots thudding against the earth. The village headman, Haji Karim, emerged from his home, his face etched with worry. "What is this?" he demanded, approaching the leader of the group, a burly man with a scarred face named Rahim. "We've come to claim this land for a new mining project," Rahim said, his voice cold. "You'll be compensated, take it or leave." The villagers murmured, their livelihoods tied to the soil. Amir listened, his heart sinking as he sensed the fear in their voices. This wasn't a negotiation, it was a takeover. Rahim's men began marking plots with red flags, ignoring the protests. Zainab clutched Amir's shoulder, her breath quickening. "They can't do this," she whispered. Amir nodded, his mind racing. He had heard rumors of corrupt officials exploiting villages like Karen, but this was the first time it hit home. As the men approached their house, Amir's ears caught a faint click sound he recognized from his father's old radio. It was the snap of a hidden device, perhaps a recorder or a weapon. His instinct screamed danger. "Get out," Rahim barked, shoving Zainab aside as he entered. Amir stumbled, his stick clattering to the floor. Rahim rifled through their meager belongings, finding a small tin where Zainab kept her savings, barely enough for a month's food. "This will do for now," he sneered, pocketing the money. Zainab lunged forward, but a guard restrained her. Amir's world tilted, his mother's cry pierced his heart. He reached out, his hands trembling, but Rahim slapped them away. "Blind kid won't stop us," he laughed, his men joining in. The assault fueled a fire in Amir. As the men left, he crawled to his stick, his mind replaying every sound, the click, the rustle of paper, the engine's growl. He knew this wasn't just about land, it was a conspiracy. That night, he confided in his best friend, 10-year-old Sarah, a girl with a sharp tongue and sharper ears. "They're hiding something," he whispered, describing the clique. Sarah's eyes widened. "My uncle said they've been bribing the district officer. Maybe it's proof." The next morning, Amir devised a plan. Using his acute hearing, he would track the men's movements and find that device. Sarah agreed to guide him, her small hand in his as they slipped out at dawn. The village slept, unaware of the boy's mission. Amir's ears led him to a secluded shed where the SUVs were parked. The click grew louder, guiding him to a metal box under a tarp. His fingers fumbled, but Sarah helped him pry it open. Inside was a recorder, its red light blinking evidence of Rahim's deals with the district officer. Suddenly, footsteps approached. Amir froze, his heart pounding. Sarah yanked him behind a crate as Rahim and 2 guards entered, their voices low. "The officer wants this wiped by tomorrow," Rahim said, holding a similar device. Amir's breath caught. This was bigger than he thought. The guards left, but not before one dropped a map, its edges crinkling as it hit the ground. Sarah retrieved it, her fingers tracing routes to a mining site. "They're planning to destroy the water wells," she gasped. "AMIR single quotes, resolve hardened." He clutched the recorder, its weight a symbol of hope. They returned home, hiding the evidence under his mattress. Zainab, noticing his determination, asked, "What are you up to?" Amir explained, his voice firm. "I can't see Ami, but I can hear the truth. We have to fight." Zainab's eyes filled with tears, pride, mingling with fear. She hugged him, whispering, "Be careful, my brave boy." That afternoon, the village gathered as Rahim announced the eviction deadline 3 days. The elders pleaded, but Rahim smirked, waving a forged document. Amir, standing with Sarah, felt the crowd's despair. He stepped forward, his stick tapping the ground. "You're lying," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. Rahim laughed, but Amir raised the recorder, playing a snippet of Rahim's bribe negotiation. The crowd gasped, the elders' faces hardening. Rahim lunged, but the villagers blocked him, their anger erupting. Amir stood tall, his blindness a shield against fear. "This is our home," he declared. The confrontation drew the attention of a passing NGO worker who recorded the scene and promised to alert authorities. 5 minutes later, as Rahim retreated with his men, the worker's call reached the provincial government, sparking an investigation. Amir sat with Zainab that night, the recorder safe in his hands. The village buzzed with hope, but he knew the war was just beginning. The district officer's involvement loomed, and the mining threat remained. Yet, in his darkness, Amir felt a light of purpose to protect his people. The story of his war had only started. The air in Keren hung heavy with tension at 11 a.m. PKT on Thursday, June 19, 2025, the sun climbing higher over the arid plains. 12-year-old Amir sat on the edge of his cot, the small recorder clutched tightly in his hands, its cold metal a lifeline to hope. The village buzzed with a newfound energy after his bold stand against Rahim the previous day. The NGO workers' promise to alert the provincial government had sparked whispers of an investigation, But Amir's heart raced with uncertainty. The click of that hidden device echoed in his mind, a reminder that the fight was far from over. Zainab hovered nearby, her eyes shadowed with worry as she prepared tea. "Amir, you did something brave, but these men won't give up easily," she said, her voice soft but firm. Amir nodded, his unseeing gaze fixed on the sounds around him, the rustle of leaves, the distant clatter of pots, the faint hum of an approaching vehicle. His acute hearing, his greatest strength, told him trouble was brewing. Sarah slipped in, her small footsteps quick. "They're back," she whispered, clutching a crumpled map. "Rahim and more men." Amir's stomach tightened. He and Sarah had hidden the recorder under his mattress, but the map outlining the mining site and the planned destruction of the village's water wells remained a loose end. They had planned to present it to the authorities, but time was running out. The villagers gathered outside, their voices a mix of defiance and fear, as Rahim's SUVs rolled into the square. This time he wasn't alone. A tall, stern man in a suit stepped out, District Officer Asif Malik, his presence a chilling confirmation of the conspiracy. Malik addressed the crowd, his tone smooth but menacing. "This land is ours by law. Any resistance will be met with force," the villagers murmured, but Amir felt the shift. Malik's voice carried an edge of desperation. Rahim scanned the crowd, his scarred face darkening as he spotted Amir. "You little rat," he snarled, striding toward him. Zainab stepped in front, her arms outstretched. "Leave my son alone," she cried, but Rahim shoved her aside, grabbing Amir's arm. The boy stumbled, his stick falling, but his ears locked onto a new sound, a faint crackle from Malik's pocket. Another recorder? Amir's mind raced. As Rahim dragged him toward the SUV, Amir twisted, his fingers brushing Malik's coat. The recorder slipped free, landing in the dust. Sarah darted forward, snatching it as the crowd surged, creating chaos. Rahim cursed, releasing Amir to chase her, but the villagers blocked his path. Amir crawled to safety, his heart pounding. Sarah rejoined him, breathless, handing over the second recorder. "Play it," she urged. Amir pressed play, and Malik's voice filled the air, negotiating bribes with Rahim to silence opposition. The crowd gasped, their anger boiling over. Malik's face paled, but he recovered quickly. "This is fabricated," he shouted, signaling his men to advance. Gunshots cracked, scattering the villagers. Amir and Sarah ducked behind a wall, the recorders safe in his hands. Zainab found them, her shawl torn. "We need to get this to the NGO," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. Emin nodded, his resolve hardening. They slipped away as the confrontation escalated, Rahim's men torching a shed to intimidate the villagers. The smoke stung Amir's nose, but his ears guided him to the NGO workers' temporary outpost on the village outskirts. The worker, a middle-aged woman named Nasreen, listened as Amir played both recordings. Her eyes widened. "This is enough to expose them," she said, dialing the provincial police. Within an hour, sirens wailed in the distance. The provincial police, alerted by Nasreen, arrived with a team to secure the village. Malik and Rahim attempted to flee, but the evidence pinned them. Amir stood with Zainab and Sarah, the villagers rallying around him as the officers were handcuffed. The crowd cheered, but Amir felt no triumph, only a hollow ache. The water wells were still at risk, and the mining project loomed. Nasreen promised to escalate the case to the courts, but warned this might take time. They have allies. That night, Amir sat with his mother, the recorders on the table. The village celebrated, but he heard the unease in their laughter. Sarah brought news. The map showed the mining site was guarded by armed men, ready to destroy the wells if the plan failed. Amir's chest tightened. "We have to stop them," he said. Zainab hesitated. "It's too dangerous, Amir." But his voice rose, firm with purpose. "I can't see Ami, but I can hear their lies. If we don't act, we lose everything." Sarah nodded, her courage matching his. They devised a plan to infiltrate the site, using Amir's hearing to avoid guards and Sarah's sight to navigate. Zainab relented, arming them with a whistle to signal for help. At midnight, they crept toward the mining site, the air thick with dust and the rumble of machinery. Amir's ears picked up the guards' footsteps, guiding them through shadows. The wells came into Sarah's view, surrounded by explosives. Amir's hands trembled as he located the detonator, its wires humming with danger. Sarah described the setup, and together they disabled it, the silence of victory. But the triumph was short-lived. A guard's shout rang out, and shots fired. Amir pushed Sarah down, the whistle falling from his lips. The sound pierced the night, alerting the village. Minutes later, the police stormed in, arresting the guards. Amir lay bruised but alive, Sarah clutching his hand. The wells were saved, but the war wasn't over. Malik's allies remained a threat. Back home, Zainab hugged him, tears streaming. "You're my hero," she whispered. Amir smiled, the weight of his blindness lifting slightly. The village hailed him, but he knew part 3 would bring new battles. The fight for justice had just begun, and his war would echo beyond Karen. The midday sun blazed over Karen at 12 p.m. PKT on Thursday, June 19, 2025, casting harsh shadows across the village square. 12-year-old Amir sat on a rickety stool outside his home, the 2 recorders resting in his lap like sacred relics. The air was thick with the scent of burnt wood from the shed Rahim's men had torched the previous night, and the villagers' cheers from the well rescue had faded into a tense silence. The provincial police had arrested the guards at the mining site, but Amir's keen ears picked up a new undercurrent, a murmur of fear and a distant hum of engines. The war he had ignited was far from won. Zainab hovered nearby, her hands busy mending a torn shawl, her eyes darting to Amir with a mix of pride and dread. The NGO worker, Nasreen, had left to file the recordings with the courts, promising swift action against District Officer Asif Malik and his cronies. But Amir's mind replayed the whistle's piercing cry, the gunfire, and Sarah's trembling hand in his. The wells were safe for now, but the mining project's backers remained a shadowy threat. Sarah joined him, her voice low. "My uncle heard trucks heading north, more men, maybe." Amir's heart sank. His blindness sharpened his other senses, and he tilted his head, catching the faint growl of engines growing louder. The village elders gathered, their faces etched with concern as Haji Karim approached. "Amir, you've given us hope, but this fight may cost us more," he said, his voice heavy. Amir nodded, his resolve hardening. "If we don't stand, they'll take everything," he replied, his voice steady despite the knot in his chest. The hum crescendoed into a roar as 3 armored trucks rolled into Karan, their tires kicking up dust. Amir recognized Rahim's voice barking orders, but a new tone emerged, smoother, more authoritative. A man stepped out, his polished shoes clicking against the ground. Provincial Minister Farouk Khan, a figure known for his iron grip on local politics, surveyed the village with cold eyes. "This resistance ends today," he declared, his voice amplified by a megaphone. "Malik was weak, now I'll handle this myself." The crowd gasped. Zainab clutched Amir's shoulder, her breath quickening. Sarah whispered, "He's the real boss." Amir's mind raced. The recordings implicated Malik, but Khan's presence suggested a higher conspiracy. Rahim's men fanned out, armed with rifles, and began rounding up villagers. Amir felt a guard's rough hand on his arm, yanking him forward. "You're the troublemaker," the man growled. Zainab screamed, but Khan raised a hand, silencing her. "Bring the boy to me." Amir was dragged to the center, his stick snatched away. Khan loomed over him, his voice dripping with disdain. "A blind child thinks he can stop progress? This land is mine, bought with power you can't comprehend." Amir's ears locked onto a faint beep from Khan's pocket. Another recorder? His fingers itched to act, but the guards held him firm. Khan ordered the wells destroyed, and a team moved toward them with explosives. The village erupted in protest, but guns silenced their cries. In that moment, Amir's world narrowed to sound. He heard the beep grow louder as Khan shifted, the rustle of paper, the click of a safety being released. His heart pounded, but a plan formed. As Khan turned to bark another order, Amir twisted, his elbow jabbing the guard's stomach. The man grunted, loosening his grip. Amir lunged, his hands finding Khan's pocket and snatching the recorder. Sarah darted in, grabbing it as Amir fell, the guards closing in. "Run!" Amir shouted. Sarah fled toward the elders, the recorder clutched tightly. Khan roared, firing a warning shot into the air. The villagers scattered, but Haji Karim shielded Sarah, snatching the device. Khan's face twisted with rage. "Kill them all if you must," he ordered Rahim, who grinned wickedly. Amir crawled to Zainab, her arms enveloping him as gunfire erupted. The wells loomed in his mind. Losing them would break the village. Nasreen arrived with police reinforcements, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Stand down, you're under arrest." The police clashed with Khan's men, a desperate melee unfolding. Amir heard Sarah's whistle, her signal, and the police zeroed in on her location. Haji Karim handed over the recorder, its playback revealing Khan's orders to Malik and threats against dissenters. The evidence was damning, and the police moved to apprehend Khan. Rahim resisted, but a shot rang out, and he fell, wounded. Khan tried to flee, but Nasreen tackled him, cuffing his hands. The fighting subsided, the villagers cheering as the police secured the scene. Amir stood, supported by Zainab, his chest heaving. The recorder had worked again. but the cost was high. 2 villagers were injured, and the wells bore scorch marks from a near detonation. Nasreen approached, her face grim. Khan's arrest will slow them, but his allies in the government won't give up easily. That afternoon, Amir sat with Sarah and Zainab, the village recovering around them. The police confiscated the explosives, but whispers of a national syndicate tied to Khan surfaced. Amir's hands trembled as he held the recorder's tools of his war. "We need more proof," he said, his voice resolute. Sarah nodded, her eyes fierce. "We'll find it." Zainab sighed, her love warring with fear. "You're growing into a leader, but be careful." The news spread globally by evening. In Pakistan, it was 12 p.m., and channels like Dawn News aired the confrontation, sparking outrage. Protests erupted in Quetta, demanding justice. Internationally, #BlindBoyHero trended, with donations pouring into a fund for Karan. Aim felt the weight of his role, his blindness a badge of courage. That night, he dreamed of his father whispering, "Keep fighting." The war wasn't over. Khan's allies plotted in the shadows, and the mining threat lingered. Amir vowed to uncover the syndicate, his ears his guide. The village hailed him, but he knew Part 4 would test his limits. The blind boy's war had become a beacon, its light burning brighter with each battle. The clock struck 10:01 a.m. PKT on Thursday, June 19, 2025, as a tense silence settled over Karen. 12-year-old Amir stood in the village square, the morning breeze carrying the faint scent of burnt earth from the previous night's clash. The 2 recorders, now battle-worn, rested in his hands, their weight a testament to his war. Provincial Minister Farooq Khan's arrest had shaken the mining syndicate, but the village remained on edge. The wells stood intact, yet the hum of distant engines signaled that the fight wasn't over. Amir's blind eyes stared into the void, his ears attuned to every sound, ready for the next move. Zainab stood beside him, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders, her face a mix of pride and exhaustion. Sarah clung to his arm, her small frame trembling but determined. The night before, the police had uncovered a ledger in Khan's truck, linking him to a national syndicate of corrupt officials and corporate tycoons funding the mining project. Nasreen, the NGO worker, had rushed the evidence to Islamabad, but Amir knew the syndicate wouldn't surrender without a final strike. The silence broke with a deafening roar. 3 helicopters descended, their blades chopping the air, kicking up dust and panic. Amir's ears picked out the distinct clatter of military-grade machines, far beyond Rahim's men. Villagers scattered as armed figures in tactical gear dropped from the choppers, led by a tall man with a commanding voice. "This is a government operation," he bellowed. Amir recognized the tone. General Tariq, a high-ranking officer rumored to be the syndicate's enforcer. Zainab pulled Amir back, but he resisted. "They're here for the recorders," he whispered. Sarah nodded, her eyes wide. General Tariq approached, his boots thudding with authority. "Hand over the evidence, boy, and this ends peacefully," he said, his voice cold. Amir felt the threat in his words, the weight of guns trained on him. But his mind raced back to the ledger. Its details of bribes and threats could topple the syndicate if exposed. "I won't," Amir said, his voice steady. Tariq signaled, and a guard lunged, snatching one recorder. Amir clutched the second, twisting away. Sarah screamed, tackling the guard's legs, giving Amir a moment. He darted toward the well, his stick guiding him, and dropped the recorder into the water, its waterproof casing preserving the evidence. Tariq cursed, ordering his men to search, but the chaos gave the villagers a chance to act. Haji Karim rallied the crowd, their anger erupting. Stones flew, and the police, still present from the night before, joined the fray, clashing with Tariq's men. Gunfire cracked, and Amir heard Zainab's cry as she was shoved aside. He stumbled, his heart pounding, but his ears locked onto a new sound: a drone's whir. Nasreen had returned, her voice cutting through the noise. "Hold on. Help's coming." The drone, equipped with a camera, broadcast the scene live, its feed reaching global networks. Within minutes, the internet exploded. In Pakistan, it was 10:01 a.m., and channels like Geo News interrupted broadcasts, showing the confrontation. #BlindBoyHero trended worldwide, with viewers demanding intervention. The Pakistani military, alerted by the live feed and pressured by international outrage, dispatched a neutral task force. Helicopters bearing the national flag arrived, forcing Tariq's men to stand down. Amir collapsed, Sarah and Zainab rushing to his side as the fighting ceased. General Tariq was apprehended, his rank stripping away his power. Nasreen retrieved the recorder from the well, its contents intact. The task force seized the ledger, uncovering a web of corruption stretching to corporate giants and foreign investors. Amir sat, breathless, as Zainab hugged him, tears streaming. "You did it, my son," she whispered. Sarah grinned, her hand in his. The village cheered, their voices a symphony of relief. The aftermath was swift. By noon, the government declared the mining project terminated, citing illegal operations. The wells were declared protected land, and compensation was promised for the village's losses. Nasreen handed Amir a letter from the Prime Minister commending his bravery. Globally, donations flooded the Delgado Justice Fund, now partnering with Karen's cause, raising millions. Amir's story inspired movements from Karachi to New York, with children chanting his name, but the emotional toll lingered. Amir visited the injured villagers, his hands trembling as he apologized. "I brought this fight," he said, but they shook their heads. "You gave us hope," an elder replied. Zainab's eyes softened, her fear replaced by pride. That night, Amir sat by the well, the recorders now symbols of victory. He heard his father's voice in the wind, a memory guiding him. "You're stronger than you know," it seemed to say. The syndicate's leaders faced trial, their arrests broadcast live. Tariq confessed under pressure, naming executives who fled the country. The courts ordered a national inquiry into corruption, with Karen as its starting point. Amir became a reluctant hero, his blindness a beacon of courage. Schools invited him to speak, and a documentary crew arrived, capturing his journey, yet peace brought its own challenges. Amir struggled with nightmares, gunshots, Zainab's cries, Sarah's whistle. He confided in her, and she smiled. "We'll face it together." Zainab enrolled him in a school for the visually impaired, promising a future beyond war. The village rebuilt, its wells a symbol of resilience. An emir's story spread, teaching the world about justice through a blind boy's ears. At 10:01 p.m., Amir stood atop a hill, the village lights twinkling below. The war was over, but his legacy endured. He whispered to the stars, "For you, Abu." The Delgado Justice Fund adopted him as an ambassador, and plans for a community center began. Amir's blindness, once a limitation, now defined his strength. The blind boy's war had ended, but his fight for a better world had just begun, a tale to inspire generations.